am also going to record the session. I just hit play or just hit record. So about half an hour after our session is over, it should be on my resource website, and I will be sending off a follow-up email to you that will have that link in there. The final thing is looking at our sign up for this. We had a lot of educators, mostly from Virginia, and I really want to encourage you that we're in this together. The principal at the school I serve always talks about we're better together, and I'm really trying to have that mindset as we're looking at how we might adapt to what learning looks like in 2020 and beyond. So those are our agreements. We might touch on those again throughout this session, but so far in this series, we found a lot of success with these. Continuing on, this quote I thought was really powerful. Teachers in the most exciting and effective differentiated classrooms don't have all the answers. What they do have is optimism and determination. Educators, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. Some of you I know very well, others, this is the first interaction that I've had with you. You wouldn't be here if you weren't determined to serve your students and if you weren't optimistic that we might be able to find solutions to do so. So I know that you're in the exact right place, and I'm so excited for your learners and for you as we move into this endeavor together. Just a real quick overview of the different topics we'll be getting into. We're going to start off with our overview and definitions. We'll get into choice boards, and we'll see a few different layouts for what those can look like, and you'll have lots of templates that you can explore. After that, we'll move into Hyperdocs, and we'll see how those can be structured, what some of the ideas are behind a Hyperdoc. We'll also briefly touch on some skills that might be helpful as you're building a Hyperdoc. And then we're going to wrap up. And at the end of each session, formally we wrap up. I send you to fill out feedback, but then invite people to stick around if you have additional questions. So those would be ones that you want to bring to me. And then I'll do a click through and try to model a response to you the best I can. So continuing on our introduction, just a real quick overview of choice boards. Some people call these learning menus. I know that these are extremely popular in schools right now. My son's school, every week we're emailed a new choice board for him for the week. It looks different from district to district, but that is an expectation where I'm at. So with this, the emphasis is on differentiation in terms of the content that is presented to our students, how they're interacting with it, and then what that artifact or product of their learning looks like. So we do want to give them really that choice for the ability to pick what way they want to go. Additionally, students select one or more methods of engaging with the content. So we're going to, for the most part, be hanging out in one called a tic-tac-toe layout, and we'll be able to see, how they're able to go in and select things. Continuing on, choice boards for a lot of teachers started off as a physical format, but now it can be enhanced with technology so that we can have links in there, we can have videos, different ways to engage with the content. And finally, it values our students' gifts, interests, and personality. And we know that our students have lots of gifts, interests, and personality. So the more that we can leverage and tap into those, the more real it becomes for our kiddos. My aunt is a second grade teacher in Ohio, and she was telling me about one of her students who right now is building a treehouse with his dad. And so whenever she finds resources or ways to integrate that interest or that passion that he has into her choice boards and instructions, she always tries to do that. And when she told me that she was making those steps, I was so excited for her learner, knowing how valuable that would be. Continuing on, Hyperdocs. To me, this is really important. It's a student-centered learning plan. When I was in the classroom, I'm going to go ahead and admit that I made lesson plans. The content that I put together was really built initially with what I was doing as the educator. When I started thinking about Hyperdocs and started thinking about the professional development that I do as a student-centered learning plan, what are my participants doing? What are the learners doing? How are they engaging with the content? It completely revolutionized how I approach teaching. With our Hyperdocs, I really want to emphasize that we can make it a mix of individual, small group, and full class experiences for them, even though we are doing distance learning right now. And throughout our session together today, we'll see how we can bring in some of those different pieces. Finally, we're going to look at some templates that are built and established upon some established lesson plan structures. So if you're someone who's like, I use the 5E lesson plan template, and that's what I've done for a long time, it will look familiar to you, and there are some other ones in there as well. So starting off, we're going to look at choice boards, and I have a really short video in here looking at one person's choice board. We're gonna watch this and then continue on to some of these examples.
I'm Martine Brown.
And I'm Tyra Clayton.
And today we're going to talk to you about digital choice boards.
Digital choice boards, they allow students to choose an activity or activities that will complete for an assignment or to demonstrate understanding. Digital choice boards, students can choose activities that can be described or hyperlinked. You can consider telling students to complete activities in a row, or you can also have a column. It just depends on your students. Each column or row on digital choice board can be focused on a particular skill or standard.
When we take a look at an example like the one listed, you can organize your choice board into a 9-square model and 3 in a row. Teachers can choose what they want to differentiate. For examples, you can differentiate what students will produce, like this example, where students can produce different types of creations, or how students will engage with different learning styles, which level of complexity students are ready for, or which activities appeals to the students' interests. For a copy of this Show What You Know link or the template, please look in the description box below.
All right, thank you for watching that short video with me. I think that it does. Oh, Grace. Okay, so thank you again for watching that short video. I'm going to pause real quick and allow a few people, or invite a few people to just share out on what you noticed. So if you'd like to unmute, I would love to hear from a few of you guys about what stood out to you about choice boards.
I like the option of like going across or going down the grid to for student choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Allowing them to kind of connect which of those activities they want to engage with. Thank you.
I think the variety of choices was pretty amazing. Some of those things I didn't even recognize, and I'm looking forward to exploring, but as a kid, that would really excite me.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Yeah, and that's a big part of the goal right now, right? Like, how do we excite our students in this time where we're doing distance learning, and when we get back to the classroom, we can still utilize a lot of these strategies and resources at that point too. Thank you very much. Maybe one more person who'd like to share out.
Ability. Go ahead.
Maybe 2 more people.
I really liked the way the choice board allowed students that were very creative to use their creative sides, or those that weren't as creative have a very structured format.
Right, and sometimes having that structure allows us to move forward. I definitely have worked with students, and you can even reflect on times in my own learning where it just being completely open makes it where I don't have an entry point. And so at different points in my life and with different skills, I've definitely appreciated both having a lot of structure and having complete freedom. Thank you for bringing that up. And I think there's one other person who was trying to share a little bit ago.
It just allows you to differentiate with your students, and they all feel like they're, they're doing the same activity, but you can adapt to their learning styles so they don't feel like they're being separated, and you just can reach everyone's needs, which is what we're there for.
Thank you. And with that, I taught high school English, and I definitely had semesters where I was collecting 90 papers at the same time. I would much rather have a podcast from one student, have a video that someone else produced, look at a website that someone else made about here are the different contrasting points. And it makes it a lot more fun for me to assess and to give feedback as well when I have that variety. So a little selfish plug there too. So we're going to continue on to this next slide, slide 11. And on it, we have a tic-tac-toe board. So the directions that they're typically doing, complete 2 to 3 tasks. And the way that this one is set up, everybody has to do number 5. So whether you go up and down, if you go horizontal, diagonally, everybody has that number 5. And maybe that's the entry point and everyone wants to have that common beginning, or maybe it's, here's the final assessment, here's the summative piece, and all the other pieces are formative as you're starting to engage with the content or the skills. Some other things that we notice when we look at this, it requires everybody to do a blue or bluish green and a yellow. There's no way you can go through number 5 and not connect with one of each of those, right? So one way that some teachers who I was working with a couple weeks ago, we looked at it, what if all the bluish green are academic skills and they're tied to the content standards that we do as Virginian educators, and all of the yellowish ones, those are all the social emotional piece, and we're trying to connect with our students, and maybe it's not academic, maybe it's build a fort, read a book, or go on a walk with your family, or whatever else it might be that we can tap into can be really powerful. What I'm going to invite everybody to do now is to click on that tic-tac-toe choice menu on the right-hand side. This is going to open up a new tab for you. And in the top right, you'll see the blue Use Template button, and we're going to click on that. This is putting a copy of that tic-tac-toe menu into your Google Drive so that you can completely customize it to meet your students' needs, and that you can start to use this in the coming days or weeks. So the first thing that we'd want to do is give this a name, right? For some people, like the teacher, my 7-year-old's teacher, my first grader's teacher, a lot of them are organizing it by week. So this would be the week of May 18, or next week would be May 11th, right? So they can just name it that. In the future, maybe you name it after the unit that you're in. And you could set it up that way too. The next piece that we'd want to get into is with all of these boxes, right? All of our cells, we can put read this article, and we can put that there, or we can do a link to a YouTube video. Now, an important skill that I want to make sure everybody knows how to do, because I really think that in Google Docs, this will make things a lot easier for you and your students, is if I highlight the word article, up at the top of my menu here is a picture of a link, right? Like a picture of a chain. I can also do Control K, or if you're on a Mac, it would be the Apple K. When I click on that, it comes up and it allows me to put a link in here. So if I wanted to send them to Newsella, and maybe I already have the link copied and I'm ready to just paste it in here, I can select that and apply, and now I have a link in there. For a lot of our students, and we know that, like if I look at the URL at the top of this Google Doc, it's really long and it won't fit into this box. But when I do that Control K or click on this link button, I'm able to type whatever word I want in there and then have my link live as well. To show that just one more time, I'm highlighting the word read. I'm doing Control K, and then it allows me to either do a search. So if I wanted to, learn about pandas, and I could go in and find it. So we're not going to really spend our time together building this out. Our session is really focused on seeing different ways that we can present the information and what is available. Just know that you have a copy of this in your Google Drive that you can go back to. And then in 2 weeks, we're starting to put together what our session offerings will be for 2 weeks from now. And they will include an intro to Google Docs, an extended version of today's session, where you'll have a little bit more practice time. So you can look out for that. You can also email me as you move ahead. And if you want to just send me a link and ask for some quick feedback, I'll be able to provide that, or I'll do my best to provide that to you. I'm going to head back to our slides now. And on the next 2 slides, we have a lot of examples of different choice boards and learning menus that you can take a look at. So I'm looking at slide 12. And on here, just a few quick things that I want to highlight before I give you about 5 minutes to just explore. If you click on Shake Up Learning, this first icon, a lot of my resources came from there. Casey Bell is an amazing educator, provides a lot of free resources out to the education community. And this is a Google folder that she put together, and it has a collection of choice boards and learning menus. Now, some of these folders don't have as many as we would, maybe hope for, but there are some really good resources in here that you can check out. So as we peek through, you can go into choice board template or 912 choice boards and be able to find some good things in there. So again, we're going to take about 5 minutes. We'll go until 3:55 and we'll come back together. I would like you on slides 12 and 13, just click. If there's something that's interesting to you, give it a click, read up on it, look at what that material looks like. If you have a question, you can shout it out or put it in the chat and I'll be able to respond as well. Can I have one volunteer summarize what we're going to be doing for the next 5-ish minutes?
We'll be playing around with the choice boards.
Jess, you knocked it out of the park. Thank you. Great job. I'm starting our 5-minute timer now. Go ahead and explore, ask any questions that you have, and find some cool stuff. All right, we just got the question, a really good question sent to me about how can a teacher keep track of what has been completed in a tic-tac-toe or other choice board, and would we do it differently based on grade level? So that's a really good question. if you're using a tool like Google Classroom, which I know a lot of you are doing, or if you have another type of learning management system such as Schoology or Canvas, once you make this an assignment, most likely it's going to make a copy of that for your students. And at that point, you can start going in and looking at their progress as they go. You do not need to wait until they do a final submission. And I really think that that would be helpful to, make sure that people are on track as they're going and not have some big surprises at the end. You can also do a daily or weekly check-in. I know some people use a choice board for a multi-week unit, depending on what your class is. So that would be a possibility. Maybe tying in a tool like Google Forms where people every couple days are filling in and just saying, this is where I'm currently at. A lot of those learning management systems and Google Classroom that we talked about before also have messaging pieces built in. So you could say, hey, students, if you're running into an issue, please shoot me a message in this chat or shoot me an email and I'll be able to help you. So those would probably be my different approaches to making sure that everybody is moving along at the right speed and that they any questions they have are answered. Okay, so I hope that in those 5-ish minutes that you're able to find something that you found to be really valuable. I'm going to screen share again. And we'll go ahead and move on to our next little bit where you guys will have a few moments to share out some of your favorites. On slide 14, we have some links I'd like you to click on. And this is to a Padlet page. So if everyone can go to slide 14, if you don't have our slides up, John or Eric, can you drop this link into the chat so that people can get there? The link that we're using is bit.ly/3bb57gz. The G and Z are capitalized. And bet that a lot of you are already in our Padlet. I have 3 questions set up in there. If you've never used Padlet before, you'll notice that we have these 3 columns going. At the bottom of each one is a little plus sign, and that's where you can click to add to that particular topic. I see a few people are starting to do that. So you don't have to fill in for all 3 of these. You don't even have to fill in for any, but if you could take a moment, maybe respond to one, I'd really appreciate it. So our questions are, what are your inspirations and aha moments? Which is my favorite template? And then finally, what are some non-academic ideas that you might be able to include in one of your choice boards that you create? So we'll take maybe a minute to fill these in, and then we'll have some time to go through and reflect on them. You guys can keep filling in ideas. I do want to highlight something that I just read. It seems much easier to keep track of than I initially thought. I love when we have those moments where we're like, I've got this. It's something I can do, and we're going to have success. So awesome. Thank you for putting that in there. I love the optimism. Goes back to that that Tomlinson quote earlier. That we love including social emotional. Awesome. All right, so at this point, you can continue to drop ideas in. I would also invite you to review what other people have said, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from each other about what were some things that really stood out as you're exploring and as we read other people's responses. So if you'd like to unmute and just share out something that stood out to you, whether on your own exploration or from someone else's post, I'd love to hear from a few people. Okay, well, I can see from your excitement of writing that there were some really positive things in here. I love that someone mentioned Go Noodles. My 7-year-old definitely loves that. Looking throughout some other places, love the options for SPED students. That's so big, definitely important. People talking about Fortnite and Edflix for their favorite template. The Edflix ones, I believe, come from a Virginian educator named John Meehan, and he lives up in the DC area, and you should follow him on Twitter if you can. Some amazing resources come from his brain, a really good person to learn from as well. All right, so I'm gonna bounce back to our slides. We're gonna move into Hyperdocs for a little bit, and then we will come back to that Padlet probably in about 15 minutes or so, where you can kind of return to those questions now that we've had the experience within Hyperdocs as well. All right, so part 3, Hyperdocs. Again, we're gonna watch a short video introduction about what Hyperdocs are.
Created using Powtoon.
Okay, so yes, created using Powtoons. Hyperdocs, I'll tell you a little bit about my history with Hyperdocs. Back in 2015, I still lived in North Carolina. I came up to Charlottesville for an EdTech team summit going on at the high school. That weekend, I went to a session by one of the Hyperdoc ladies, one of the 3, Lisa, who's here in the center. And when I saw her session, I'm like, this doesn't seem like anything too big. It's just, you know, using links in here. That's not that impressive. Then a couple of years later, I had an opportunity to have breakfast with Kelly. And I told her, I kind of admitted, I don't see the value in Hyperdocs. And I wasn't that blunt. I was pretty kind about it. But she told me, you have a misunderstanding of what it is. And I love those opportunities in life when I have a misunderstanding, and it leads to me learning, right? So then she ran into, or she went over, well, here are the different templates. Here's how we're trying to build upon structures that are already in place that teachers all over the world are already using. And some of those structures that we have are explore, explain, apply. And a lot of teachers use that as a baseline for how they approach their lessons. Other people, like I mentioned before, do the 5E. We can see part of those coming in over here. And so we're going to look at these different templates that the Hyperdocs ladies have put together and have for free on their website. I know a lot of people are big fans of teachers pay teachers, and there's certainly value in honoring people for the hard work that they do. Hyperdocs, they don't jive with that. They created a community, teachers give teachers. And I also love that community, we're all in this together aspect of that mindset. We're gonna bounce through some of these templates real quick. So I'm gonna click on Explore, Explain, Apply, and you can do that too, or if you just wanna look at mine, that's cool too. So the way this template would work, we would put our title in here. We would have resources that our students would explore, and then give them, what is your challenge? What are you going to do to demonstrate your understanding of this? Then explain, and we might go into the content a little bit deeper, right? So we're no longer in the introduction. We're going to provide our students some sort of resource, maybe multiple means of access. So we have something they can read, we can have videos in there, I can record my own explanation of it, and then they have another task. And then finally, how are they going to apply? Now that you have this knowledge, now that you have this skill, what's your next step? And all of that can go within here. So there are certainly some elements that are very similar to our choice boards that we saw before, right? Like we can see, well, it's done on a table. We're having links in there that take them to different options. We can still differentiate within this, right? By the different types of resources and the options that we provide for different tasks. All of that can be within here. And if this is one that you want to use, you can go up to use template. And again, it will add it to your Google Drive. The next one is probably the one I use the most. And you can see two examples down here of how I've used these templates before. So the first one I'm going to bring up, and if any of these links aren't working, I ran into that with the previous time that I led the session. Just let me know, I'll fix the links and you'll definitely get access. So this was a full day professional development that I did in Eastern Virginia, like the Virginia Beach area. And we started off by looking at what personalized learning is. I gave them what their challenge was. And then I told them, I don't care what order you go to. I don't care which of these components you explore. It's really up to what your interests are. We do have this call to action that is common for everybody. And at the end, everyone had the same exit ticket. So you can think of that as kind of like that middle square of our tic-tac-toe board. Everybody's doing this. But how do you get to that final piece was really up to the participants. Some other things to know in here, not everything had to be digital. Now, right now with our distance learning, you might be confined in different ways. But this first activity was, I had different definitions of personalized learning cut out into strips and put into an envelope. And teachers got into groups and they sorted it and they tried to explain, well, here's what my definition of personalized learning is based on this constructed, synthesized definition, looking at these other resources. And then we have our links in here. We have podcasts linked, we have websites, all sorts of different types of content. I did provide places for students to engage with the content by putting in notes and other ways that we're displaying our knowledge. We do have two guests who are joining right now, Miles and our dog, Bruce. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, bud? I don't know what you said. Can I move downstairs? I can't right now. I'm sorry. Miles, there are 100 people watching you right now. Can you wave? Yeah, 100 people. All right, so we're going to bounce back. The final option in here, the final one, is the Hyperdoc format. And this is one that the Hyperdoc ladies put together. And it is building upon and synthesizing multiple learning plan templates and lesson plan templates. And you would be able to drop in a picture that represents the idea, or maybe this could be a checkbox once your student has completed it, and they move through, engage, explore, explain, apply, share, and reflect, and then finally extend as an optional final piece in there. I do want to encourage all of you as you go through this to definitely reflect on what works, what doesn't, and then that's an important skill that we offer to our students, especially during this time as well. All right, so those are some templates that you can take a peek at. We're going to continue on. And on this slide, slide 18 has a few links that I want you to check out. The first, we'll go ahead and click on the template link. This will take you to their recently redesigned templates page. In here, we can see on the left-hand side, these are the blank templates. On the right-hand side would be an example of someone using that template. So we have the basic Hyperdoc, and then over here is a creative writing challenge that uses the basic Hyperdoc. I use the 5E ones a fair amount, and I use the hero's journey quite a bit as well, but that's how this particular page and resource is set up. The other piece that you can explore in the next couple moments, if you click on lessons, again, we're taken to a sample, a set of samples you can pick by what subject area you're looking at. So maybe you need one for history and geography. That's going to bring you into a Google Drive folder where you can go and search for the particular one that you'd like to use. Now, for a lot of these, if your default view in Google Drive is the list view and you don't have these icons, you're going to want to click up here. And that's how you toggle your view in Google Drive. So to me, I'd want to know what I'm looking at before I click into it. But here's Lewis and Clark. I'm sure Virginia, 4th grade, we're learning all about Lewis and Clark. I can click on that, make a copy, and then adapt it for my own purposes. So this is chock full of many, many, many different Hyperdocs that are already built. You'll notice it's kind of split half and half between Google Docs and Google Slides. So you'll definitely see some of each. You can explore this as well. And as we saw, each subject area had its own collection, and they are across grade levels, although it's hard to kind of go in and sort to say, I only want to see 4th grade or I only want to see 3rd grade. So it will take a little bit of time to find the perfect one for you. The final example that I want to show is this Hyperdoc. And with this is one that the Hyperdoc ladies gave to me to adapt and be able to use with teachers across the country. And in here, it really walks you through how to make a Hyperdoc each step along the way. And it has this place for you to take notes. So again, you can use template and be able to customize it for your own need. It has a design school challenge that's going to walk you through how to do different things in Google Slides. Not next week, but the following week on that Monday, so May 18th, I'm going to do a combined session on Google Docs and Google Slides. So if you're like, I don't really know what he's talking about, or you just want to take it to the next level, please come to that session. It hasn't been posted yet, but it will come out pretty soon. I'd love to have you there. Continuing down through here, it encourages you to share, give back to that teachers give teachers piece, and you can follow through that Hyperdoc about how to make a Hyperdoc. How meta. So let's take about 3 minutes to explore these different templates and lessons, and then we're going to go back to our Padlet and be able to post some additional responses about what we were able to find. So it's 4:13. At 4:16, we'll come back during these next couple moments. If you do have questions, you can certainly ask. But otherwise, please go explore, find something that could be helpful for you tomorrow, next week, whenever. So a couple more moments, or like another minute or two to explore. And I'm also finding the resources from the Edflix guy, and I'll put that link in our chat so that you can find it as well. I love the comment someone just posted in the chat. I feel like a kid in the candy store, so many possibilities. There you go. That's the goal for today. I'm glad that you have that optimism, that excitement about how you can serve your students. All right, so I want to capture those ideas. I'm going to capture all the candy that you guys are running into and make sure that other people are aware of the amazing resources that you're finding. So we are going to come back together. If you still have the tab open for the Padlet, you can just go back there. Otherwise, the link is on slide 19. And you can go back and just reply to those questions again. What other inspirations have you run into? Did you find a new favorite template now that we've seen the Hyperdocs? And as always, put in some non-academic ideas about how you might be able to meet your students' needs that they have presently. So we'll take about 2 minutes for you to come back and populate our Padlet, and we'll have time for another verbal share out once we're done with this. Love that these ideas are free resources. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, about 30 more seconds to post in here, and then we will have some time for everybody, or some people, not everybody, to share out as well. Okay. So if you would like to unmute, and we'll hear from a few different people about your response, or if you saw something else in here that you had questions about, you can ask that too. One piqued my interest. Someone just put, wow, my learning curve has never been this steep. We're here for you, and you're not starting from scratch, okay? These resources are a really good way. If I were new to this, I would probably find one of those, find one of the lessons that are already built and go in and adapt it a little bit to meet my needs. I'll go ahead and say that I know how to do a lot of different design things within a doc or within slides. I never start from scratch. I always start with, here's a template, and I can just mix my ideas. I mentioned before, structure allows me to be creative. So when I have a 5E lesson format, I know these are the different pieces I need to get to. I don't need to get distracted by these other possibilities. I'm focused. When I get into a Hyperdoc, I don't get distracted about what are these other components that I may or may not want to include. I know here's a structure that has some science behind it that I know I can serve my students and meet their needs. I really encourage you to give yourself grace to try it, and we are here for you. I mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. You can shoot me emails. People have been doing that in the last couple weeks. We're here for you, you've got this. Would anyone like to share out on your ideas or reflections as we looked at this? I do like the professional development one. I can use this to liven up PD and administrative meetings. Oh yeah, I can honestly say we, the moderators and myself, we have definitely been in some PD sessions where we're like, please use some of these resources, make it something lively and a great demonstration for us that we get that great learning experience we'd like to offer to our students as well. So thank you for posting here. I'm going to bounce back to our initial slides, and we are going to kind of move into our last phase of our time together today. I do want to really emphasize that even though our students are receiving their own choice board or their own Hyperdoc, and they're learning from home, it doesn't mean that they have to work or learn in isolation, right? We can leverage the tools that we use today, some of the tools that I'm looking at with some of you tomorrow, and really continue, albeit in a different format, community from home. So one of these is Padlet, and I used it with all of you today. It's a great way, and maybe that's the middle square. Everybody has to go and post their artifacts in that middle or on a shared Padlet page. Kids don't need accounts in Padlet, just like you didn't need it. It's a fantastic tool. Or you can use Flipgrid. Again, a free tool full of accessibility features. If you want to learn more about Flipgrid, we're doing a session tomorrow. We'd love to have you. Shared notes and slides. When I click on this one, often when I do professional development with a group of educators and we're physically together, I start off with a link to slides where everybody can go in and make changes. So you can do that with your kids where, okay, go in, grab a slide, post what you've learned this week. Or maybe it's, I've done it with teachers before where I have a different topic on each slide, and then every student goes in and they collaboratively build out their notes about that topic. So we could have renewable energy, and student A brings in a video about it, student B finds an article, student C finds a picture related to it, and we can really collaboratively build out and co-construct our knowledge. Finally, I know many of you, probably most of you, are using tools like Google Classroom or a learning management system, and those have discussion boards and discussion posts. So you can use that as well to keep everybody connected and have people, that community built into your instruction at this time. Continuing into our wrap up, please keep it simple, especially that first attempt that you're doing with a choice board, with a Hyperdoc. Start off with, I'd really encourage you start off with the tic-tac-toe board, or start off with that three-step, trying to find it again. One of the Hyperdoc templates only has 3 things where we explore or engage, explore, and apply. Do something like that, or build from a template that's already been created or from a sample that's already been created. Have grace for yourself. Connect. Come back to our session tomorrow if you can, or we'll be offering that again next week. You can come back, I think, next Thursday and be able to learn more about Google Meet and about Flipgrid if you want to continue your learning that way. We're really moving into wrap up now. I would like to thank John and Eric. Couldn't have done this session without you guys. You've been so helpful the last couple of weeks. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making everything go so smoothly and answering all the questions as we go. Huge thanks to Vassal as well for making this a free experience for everybody, that we can put this on for the teachers in Virginia. You can learn about additional sessions at vassal.org. You should be able to expect in the next couple days, if you go back to Vassal, that round for May 18th will be posted. We're finalizing some session descriptions and times, but I would really think that by the end of this week, those should be posted and you can enroll or share out with your peers and be able to get them enrolled too. Thank you to Pam and Liza for your assistance in putting this on for everybody here. We are wrapping up, so if you have questions, please stick around. You can always reach out to me at adamseipel@gmail. I have gotten a few people who have also connected through Twitter, so thank you for doing that. And finally, our feedback form is going to be bit.ly/VASCLBACK. You can also click here on the slides, and it's a short form. At the end of that form, there's the option of, do you want to receive a renewal certificate? If you do, just click yes, drop in your email address, put in your name, please check to make sure that your email address is spelled correctly. Otherwise, you won't receive it, and it can mess things up for other people too. So please double check the spelling. And if you want to hang out and continue to ask questions, you can. But after you do your feedback form, you're good to go. Thank you so much for learning alongside me today. I hope to see more of you in the sessions tomorrow or next week or 2 weeks from now. If this is your last one with me, thank you for joining. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
welcome,
you so
Jess.
much.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Adam, I had a question.
Yeah.
I was looking over on that tic-tac-toe board on one of those slides that the gals created. They had an iMovie as an option, and I had developed a project years ago using iMovie where kids picked a sport of their choice and they did the physics of sports using the same 5 questions. I actually published the activity in a science practitioner's journal, but anyway,
that's awesome.
it was fun. And then I adapted it to iMovie once. I mean, I did Hyperdocs, and that was years and years ago. The original version was actually a poster, then it went to PowerPoint. Anyway, then it went to iMovie eventually. So what I want to know now is, I have not revitalized that activity in the last few years, but is there a PC equivalent to iMovie? Because we don't have the Apple platforms anymore.
Yeah, so my preferred tool for making easy videos on a PC is actually in the Paint program, or actually, I take that back. So if you have a video file and you open it up in just Photos, there's an option in there to be able to edit and make a video. And it's really a really cool and simple program. They have some music already built in. They have different templates already built in, but they can also customize it with some augmented reality pieces and be able to put animations directly in there. So that would probably be my pick. And I know some districts have, they might have Adobe products as well, or they might have WeVideo for online editing, but the one that's built into Windows is pretty cool.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions that y'all have?
Well, if no one has another one, I have a second question.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things I've done for years is, as the kids coming through the door, they all have to complete a warm-up. Is there a template out there, and it might be through that that one website you said that a lot of your things came through. Is there a particular template you think would be, or a group of templates might be good to check out?
So I haven't seen a template specifically for a warm-up. I like to think of the engage piece as my warm-up.
Oh, yeah.
So like in the 5E lesson plan template, that would always be my warm-up. How are they first getting involved to that content, whether it's an interactive game or it's a video or whatever, what's that? Or maybe I'm asking a anticipatory question that starts to get them thinking about it. So that's how I kind of would work with it.
Okay, I like that thought. Yeah. All right, thanks.
Welcome.
Adam, I can't get into the feedback. I just private messaged Eric because he had been answering the questions. I can't get in at all.
Oh no. So I will also be emailing everybody in about half an hour with a link to today's session resources, including the recording of our video, as well as the feedback form. So if you continue to have that struggle, it will come to you around 5 o'clock.
Okay. Can I ask a question about that? When I want to watch another one of your sessions, should I open the links first and the slides first, and then watch you? Like, do I shrink the the live lesson. I don't know what to do.
Okay. Let me model how I would probably go about it.
Okay.
So here's one of the pages. Here's the one for today. So you could click here, or if you have your copy of it, open that up. And
Click where?
Sorry, are you seeing my?
I see feedback. That's what I see right now. Feedback. The black screen with the yellow typing.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right.
Okay, so this is my website. And on here, the very first link, that's going to prompt you to get a copy of the slides, so you can do that. If you don't want your own permanent copy, you can click the square button up here, and that opens it up. So with the Google Chrome browser, we have these tabs at the top, and if you click and drag it down, it's going to take it out of that window and make it a separate thing. So you could, are you using a PC, a Mac, Chromebook?
I'm using this is how inept I am. I'm using a ThinkPad.
Okay, so that's a PC or
The laptop, yep. So,
yeah,
so if I click on that, one of those tabs up there, I'm going to be able to pull it down also, or no? Is my cursor working also, or no?
You should be able to, not on my screen, but on your own, you'd be able to do that.
So I have to shrink you to get to it? Like I have to shrink this screen?
Probably.
Let me see.
So if you hit the escape button should get you out of that full screen mode, and you should be able to access the other stuff.
But then do I lose you?
No, it would just be a smaller version of him.
One thing you could also do is if you want to join the session on your phone and then also on your computer, you could view a smaller version on your phone and then have the one you can play around with.
Okay. All right.
Smart. Thank you, Eric.
Because earlier I was able to shrink it down, and then I could go back to my email to try to find the ones that I had found before. I couldn't find them. I couldn't do it the same way. But then Eric had sent your website, and I was so I just went into a new tab and opened that, even as you were speaking. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Just to see if I could do it, more than anything, and I could do that. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna have to play with it, but to bring it up on the phone was a good idea, and then use the laptop to participate. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great, Eric. Thank you. And you might have the video on the small screen and then be able to manipulate everything on your laptop. I love that. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? We still have 23 folks out there. Anyone else want to add?
No question. I just wanted